A lowly creature like her dares touch my crystal glass. The words sliced through the air in Mandarin. Laughter erupted around the table, sharp, careless, cruel. The kind of laughter that comes easy when you think no one can touch you. Maya Chen's hand trembled as she set down the wine glass. Her head bowed. Her breath caught in her throat. But then she lifted her eyes. And in flawless Mandarin, she said, "The crystal glass does not lower the one who holds it. It only reflects the dignity of the one who drinks from it." Silence. Complete. Absolute. Silence. A fork clinked against porcelain, loud as a church bell in that frozen moment. Someone whispered, She understands Mandarin. But let me tell you how we got here. Because this story, it didn't start with that moment of triumph. It started hours earlier, with worn-out shoes and a breaking heart. Maya Chen was 25 years old. She wasn't supposed to be working that night. She was covering for a colleague who'd called in sick at the last minute. Emergency shift. She needed the money. The 6-star hotel in Singapore blazed with light. Chandeliers hung like waterfalls of crystal. The marble floors were so polished you could see your reflection. The air smelled of expensive wine and sandalwood. String music whispered softly in the background. And there was Maya, black apron, hair neatly pinned, a faint scar above her left eyebrow, reminder of a childhood fall. Her shoes, worn down at the heels, thrift store shoes, the kind you buy when you're juggling rent and medical bills and student loans all at once. In her apron pocket, her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look. She already knew what it said. Insurance denied Mom's treatment again. Short, sharp, heavy as a stone in her stomach. Maya inhaled slowly, held it, exhaled. Her mentor, Professor David Tan, had taught her that. Words are power, Maya, he used to say in his quiet office. But you must breathe before you use them. Breathe before you speak. She straightened her shoulders and walked toward the entrance. The security guard at the door scanned her badge. But he didn't just scan it, he held it. Looked at her. Looked at the badge again. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he was doing her a favor by letting her through. A microaggression. Soft as a shadow. But it left a mark. Maya walked past a woman draped in fur. The woman's eyes flicked over her, and her clutch purse, expensive leather gold clasped, was pulled just a little bit closer to her body, as if Maya might snatch it. At a nearby table, a man in a suit muttered to his companion, "They're really pushing diversity tonight, aren't they?" The woman next to him giggled. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. It's just a joke." The words slid off smooth, oiled, but they left a greasy trace in the air. Maya kept walking, kept breathing. She'd heard it all before. And then there was table 1. The spotlight table. The VIP table. The table where power sat with its legs crossed and its smile sharp as a blade. At the head sat Richard Cross, billionaire, energy magnate, the kind of man whose signature could change your life or end your career. His smile flashed like polished metal. Cold. Confident. Beside him sat his daughter, Sophie Cross, 22 years old, studying international relations. She didn't laugh as easily as the others. Her eyes were more watchful, more troubled. Around them sat the inner circle. Senator James Mitchell, bow tie perfectly creased, laugh soaked in whiskey. Vincent Chun, the slick-haired media mogul with a phone always in his hand. Diana Wu, the socialite with pearls like tiny chains around her neck. Ambassador Catherine Lee, wearing a glittering diplomatic pin. Dr. Robert Lim, the gray-templed scholar who'd spent his life studying language and culture. And there were others. Guests. Hangers-on. People who fed off proximity to power. Maya approached the table with her silver tray. She could feel their eyes on her. Not seeing her. Seeing the uniform. The apron. The roll. Behind her, another server, her friend Lily Park, slipped past with a tray of bread rolls. Whispers carried across the air like smoke. Uniforms here are really slipping. Those shoes look thrift store. Does she even speak proper English? Oddly enough, that last one was directed at an American. At Maya, who'd been born in Los Angeles and raised in Ohio. But her face didn't fit their expectations. So the assumptions came, automatic and ugly. Maya set a glass of wine before Senator Mitchell. The liquid rippled but didn't spill. She'd learned how to keep her hands steady even when her heart was pounding. Diana Wu's thin smile cut across the table. "So humble," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. Vincent Chin added, "If the hotel's diversity quota covers her, it should at least cover new shoes." Laughter rippled around the table. And then Richard Cross leaned in. He spoke in Mandarin, smooth as silk, sharp as thorns. A lowly creature like her dares touch my crystal glass. The table exploded in laughter. Fireworks of cruelty. They thought she didn't understand. They thought she was safe to mock. They were wrong. Maya placed the glass down gently. She straightened her back. And in that moment, she made a choice. She could stay silent, keep her head down, finish the shift, go home, or she could speak. She chose to speak. In flawless, classical Mandarin, she said, "The crystal glass does not lower the one who holds it. It only reflects the dignity of the one who drinks from it." The laughter died like someone had cut the power. A fork clinked against a plate. Ambassador Catherine Lee whispered, She understands Mandarin." Sophie Cross loosened her grip on her napkin. Her eyes went wide. For the first time that night, there was something like hope in her face. A crack had just run through the wall. But the powerful don't give up easily. Richard Cross waved his hand dismissively. "Tourist phrases," he said in English now, his voice tight. Diana Wu sweetened her tone, trying to smooth over the moment. "Parrot mimicry. That's all." Senator Mitchell grunted. "Don't be too impressed. Tone policing. The instinct of the powerful. Shrink the triumph of the weak." Then a woman in a yellow gown, Evelyn Park, tapped her fork against her glass. "Ting. Ting. Let's have some fun," she said, her smile sharp. "Say something impressive. Or are you just a one-trick pony?" The laughter crept back, cautious, testing the air. Maya didn't reply at once. She set her tray on the side table, straightened the cloth, met their eyes, and in that silence she sent a message. "I know what you want. I'll answer when I choose." Across the room, Lily paused mid-step, her eyes asking silently, "Are you okay?" The security guard shifted his stance, sensing something was about to happen. And Maya remembered the text in her pocket. Her mother. The denial. The years of sacrifice. Pain didn't make her loud. It stiffened her spine. She spoke softly, but the entire table heard. "All right. If you want to listen, then I'll let the words speak." Ambassador Lee put down her pen. Dr. Robert Lim leaned forward. Sophie held her breath. The gravity in the room shifted. Maya closed her eyes briefly. Her hand rested on the edge of the silver tray like a conductor lifting a baton. When she opened them, the game had changed. And those who demanded she prove herself were about to regret it. Maya began speaking in Mandarin. Not loudly, but with a cadence that struck deep. She recited classical Chinese poetry, ancient verses that scholars spent lifetimes studying. Each word flowed like water over stone. Gentle, but eroding. The consonants curved perfectly. The long vowels stretched with precision. The pauses fell exactly where they belonged. This wasn't memorization. This was mastery. The room went still. Dr. Robert Lim nearly dropped his fork. "Extraordinary," he breathed, his voice shaking. "The cadence, the imagery, the classical intonation. This is someone who has lived inside the language." Several heads turned toward him, seeking confirmation. And in that moment, the skeptics began to shift uneasily. But Richard Cross wasn't done. His smile thinned. "Poetry is easy," he said, voice like a blade. "Eloquence doesn't equal understanding." He tilted his head toward Vincent Chen. Vincent nodded and switched to Mandarin. He fired off a dense, labyrinthine question. Shipping lanes, tariffs between 3 trade blocks, futures spreads, a string of numbers like a maze. It was a trap, the kind the powerful set for people they want to see stumble. "This will trip her up," Senator Mitchell muttered, waiting for the spectacle. Diana Wu sipped her wine, lips curling in a half-smile. She'd already bet on Maya's fall. But Maya listened without interrupting. She tilted her head slightly, the look of someone sketching a map in her mind. And then she replied, still in Mandarin. She broke the problem into 3 routes. Set the variables. Closed with the numbers, volatility bands, basis between exchanges, systemic sensitivity. She wasn't spinning words. She was stacking blocks. And when she finished, the wall stood firm. Ambassador Lee released a low breath. Her face shifted from curiosity to respect. Dr. Lim nodded along, his eyes alight. Sophie exhaled, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. And then, most surprising of all, Senator James Mitchell began clapping. Slow, deliberate, then quickening. "That's not just fluency," he said, his voice sobered. "That's expertise." Applause spread, but resistance lingered. "Still," someone muttered, "she's just the help." The words rang like a last defense, labels clinging when all other measures had failed. Maya didn't argue. She let the silence stretch just long enough for "she's still the help" to echo in its own emptiness. Then she spoke again, low and steady, still in Mandarin. "Yes, I am a server. And I am also a student of Professor David Tan, linguistic advisor to the government." The room stirred. Senator Mitchell stumbled to his feet. "I know him," he said, voice thick with shock. "He only takes the best." A milestone had just been planted on the marble floor. Recognition. Authority. Truth. The microaggressions of the night, the clutched purse, the shoe sneer, the just joking, the "does she speak proper English?" suddenly shrank. Not because they hadn't hurt, but because against the sequence of truths Maya had laid out, fluency, poetry, finance, academic authority, they revealed themselves as plastic toys in adult hands. Ambassador Lee tilted her head slightly. A tacit acknowledgement. The order had shifted. Richard Cross closed his mouth. The smile vanished. Sophie glanced at her father, then back at Maya. Gratitude, hard to name, shone in her eyes. But Maya didn't bask in triumph. She stepped back half a pace, lifted her tray. Her fingers brushed the edge of her apron, touching an old envelope beneath the fabric. The proof was still there. Waiting. She didn't draw it yet. Tonight, she wanted her words to walk first. At the far end of the table, a voice dug in again. "No matter what, tonight you still serve us." Maya gave a small nod. "Yes," she said quietly. "And truth is serving you as well. Whether you want it or not." The words weren't bitter. Not triumphant. Just true. And truth was something this room would find much harder to turn its back on. But Maya wasn't finished yet. The strings in the hall swelled back to life. The scent of wine and sandalwood still hung in the air. But something had shifted. The room's gravity had changed. Eyes that once skimmed past Maya now paused on her every movement. Not dismissive anymore. Breathless. She set her tray on the side table, slipped her hand into her apron pocket, and touched the edge of an old envelope. The paper was worn, corners curled. The royal embossing faded with time. She drew it out slowly, not for drama, but with reverence for what had once saved her from seasons of darkness. A soft gasp escaped from somewhere at the table. Diana Wu's fingers went to her pearls. Vincent Chin adjusted his cuff, eyes refusing to meet Maya's. Ambassador Catherine Lee stopped writing. Dr. Robert Lim leaned forward. Sophie Cross half rose from her seat, hands clasped beneath the table as if praying. Maya opened the envelope. The dry rasp of paper was as sharp as the scratch of a pen on a verdict. She read clearly. In English now. For everyone to hear. Full honorary scholarship granted to Maya Chun by the Royal Fellowship for Language and Culture. She paused. Let the words settle. Then she continued, her voice steady as stone. Board Chair, Richard Cross. She lifted the document, so the chandelier's light struck the bold green signature. Richard Cross's signature. Ink. Undeniable. The room cracked like a hammer striking a fault line. Senator James Mitchell tugged his bow tie straight, shock written across his face. Ambassador Lee drew a sharp breath. Dr. Lim set down his spoon with a faint, "Oh." And Richard Cross? He froze. His face flickered with micro-expressions, defense, denial, calculation, then went dark. Maya folded the letter carefully. Her voice was low. Steady. You sign many such letters. You forget. But we do not. It wasn't an accusation. It was a record. A single clap broke out from the side of the room. Lily Park, Maya's friend. Then another clap. And another. Senator Mitchell rose to his feet, clapping, slow, deliberate, then building. Dr. Lim joined in. Then suddenly, the room was filled with applause, bursting open like windows after a summer storm. Sophie circled the table. Her heels whispered across the marble, carving a path of silence through the gasps. She stood before Maya and embraced her. Lightly, just enough to say, "I'm sorry." In a corner, a man's voice clung to the old order. "This changes nothing. She's still serving us." The words hit the floor like a sandbag. Unclaimed. Unwanted. Diana Wu tried to recover, clutching at control. "Let's keep this professional. Don't make a scene." Ambassador Lee turned, her steel blue eyes cold as winter. "And who made the scene, Diana?" Diana faltered, raised her wine glass to hide the blush creeping up her neck. Vincent Chin pulled out his phone, the screen glowing slick on his face. The lens was already recording. But Maya didn't chase the applause. She returned to work, straightening silverware, pouring water, reminding the kitchen about the gluten-free request at table 7. Every motion was now a manifesto. I do my job. I do not owe you smallness. Richard Cross pushed his chair back. His mouth opened as if to speak, then closed. Sophie looked at her father, her eyes pleading for an apology he couldn't summon. That night, a shaky phone video hit the internet. Someone had recorded it. Maybe a guest. Maybe staff. It showed Maya lifting her head, Mandarin flowing calm as a stream, chandelier light glinting across the rim of the crystal glass. Beneath the video, the pinned comment read, "She shut him down with pure class." By morning, it had thousands of views. By noon, hundreds of thousands. The caption read, #CrystalDignity #WordsArePower. People flooded the comments. Who is she? That's flawless Mandarin. I was there. I saw it happen. But threaded among the support were the poisoned barbs. The microaggressions of the online world. Don't make this about race. She's just chasing attention. Stop being so sensitive. Still, the tide of support was stronger. Deeper. It steered the current elsewhere. By the next morning, Lily laughed as she opened her phone during their break. "Maya, you're everywhere." Maya glanced down at the screen. Her heart was steady. She texted her mother instead. "I'm still with you, Mom." Then she slipped on her worn shoes and stepped into another shift. No fireworks. No speeches. Just another day's work. But somewhere above, the hands that had once pressed prejudice down upon her were slipping from the rail. News spread faster than dawn. Before lunch, the video had climbed to the top of multiple platforms. A local reporter stopped by the restaurant, asking to interview Maya. She smiled and declined. "Today I'm on the lunch shift." The woman blinked in disbelief. "But everyone's looking for you." Maya pointed to her cleaning cloth. "It's my turn to clear tables." On the other side of the city, consequences were falling like dominoes. Vincent Chen's media company lost a major international sponsor. The reason? Out of alignment with values. Diana Wu was quietly dropped from her social circle's guest lists. Her jokes from that night, clipped and looped with her line, "Don't be sensitive," became a catalog of polite but poisonous microaggressions. Senator Mitchell became a meme. The frame of him clapping captioned, "Politician discovers real expertise." And Richard Cross? The board called an emergency meeting. A leaked internal memo read, "We are seriously evaluating unprofessional conduct that could damage the company's reputation." In the middle of the storm, Maya kept setting tables. The hotel manager, Peter Lang, approached her one afternoon. His tone had shifted. "We're proud of you, Maya," he said carefully. "And PR would like your consent to use your image for a campaign." Tone policing had turned to appropriation. The powerful wanting to decorate themselves with her story. Maya replied politely but firmly. "Last night wasn't a brand campaign. It was truth." Peter nodded. "Stepped back. If you change your mind, I'll reach out myself." Maya gave a small smile. A clear boundary. That afternoon, Ambassador Catherine Lee returned with a thin envelope. "This is my official statement on what happened that night," she said, handing it to Maya. Maya received it, bowing slightly in thanks. The ambassador leaned close. Her voice dropped. "Don't let them define the story for you." A stake driven into the windswept road. Later that day, Sophie appeared at the staff entrance. Her eyes were sleepless. She clutched a thick notebook. "This is my apology," she said, voice trembling. "And from friends I convinced to write their own." The pages were crowded with ink. Messy handwriting. I laughed. I stayed silent when I should have spoken. "I'm sorry." Maya didn't read it right away. She slid it into a drawer. "Apologies need time to steep," she said gently. "Like tea." Sophie bit her lip. Her eyes were wet. "My dad." She stopped. "He could lose everything." Maya shook her head gently. "Not everything. Only what isn't worth keeping." That evening, an email arrived. From the Board of Directors, Cross Energy Holdings. Subject, decision. Peter Lang opened it in the staff room. He looked at Maya, nodded slightly, then read aloud. "The board has voted to terminate Richard Cross's role as executive chairman, effective immediately. He withdraws from all scholarship boards in the partner ecosystem for at least 24 months. Final decision, pending internal investigation." The room sat still. Lily squeezed Maya's hand. The security guard, Carson, threw open the window to let the air rush in. Aisha, a housekeeper who'd suffered her own share of quiet cruelty, bowed her head low, as if laying down a burden she'd carried too long. Maya didn't cheer. She only texted Sophie. "Read." Breathe. Hold. Breathe. Sophie replied. I'm still shaking. But I feel lighter. But Maya knew something important. Consequences weren't enough. Systems had to change. So when the hotel's PR team sent a request, a gala dinner honoring Maya, press invited, backdrop banners, hashtags, Maya read it. Then rewrote it with a condition. If the dinner turns into a whitewash for those who laughed that night, I won't attend. If it's a workshop on microaggressions and how the hotel can train staff and guests, I'll speak. She hit send. 10 minutes later, Ambassador Lee replied on CC. I'm willing to sit at that table. The workshop took place on the 3rd floor. 30 chairs. Present were Carson, the security guard, floor supervisors, chefs, shift managers, and Sophie Cross sitting quietly in the back, cap pulled low. Maya opened not with a video or a speech, but with a white tablecloth, a crystal glass, and a question. Why is it that with the same glass, some are called classy and others out of place? She split the whiteboard into 3 columns. Gatekeeping, tone policing, prove it tests. Then she invited 3 volunteers for role plays. Gatekeeping. Carson played the guard. Maya the new staffer. Carson read the old script. Show me your badge again. Maya paused. When a request is repeated without cause, that's gatekeeping. Count how many times this happens to minority staff versus others. That's data, not sensitivity. Tone policing. A shift manager said, don't make a scene. Smile more. Maya responded. When someone's insulted, telling them to smile shifts the emotional burden onto the harmed. New policy. Replace it with, I hear what you said. I will address that behavior. Soft wows broke out around the room. Prove it tests. A supervisor challenged with, if you're good, prove it. Maya. That forces weaker groups to take tests in the middle of service. Rule. No pop quizzes outside job scope. Ambassador Lee raised her hand. I want this in the record. Microaggressions are not small. They are the foundation on which discrimination stands. By the end of the session, Peter held up a draft policy. Anonymous QR channel for reporting guest handling criteria quarterly audits, no retaliation against reporters. Maya added a line in red pen. No retaliation against reporters. Peter stared at it, then signed. 3 weeks later, the first cohort of the David Tan Fellowship gathered. 18 people. Servers. Housekeepers. Security. Kitchen staff from 4 hotels. Maya didn't retell the Crystal Night with drama. She began with something small. Each person filled out a slip describing a time when a just joking remark made them shrink. In 10 minutes, the walls were covered in yellow notes. Lily read them aloud, sorting them. Gatekeeping, tone policing, prove it. Heads nodded. For the first time, the little thorns had names. At the end of the program, Maya led a breathing drill. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Speak. In the hall, power often speaks first, she said. We practice the pause to choose words, both for serving and for defending ourselves. Hands pressed to chests. Breath steadied. Carson shook Maya's hand. I apologize for that night. Maya replied simply, thank you. Don't perform. Change the habit. 2 months later, Maya finished her Saturday night shift. The city shimmered across the river like thousands of metal flowers. She stood in the grand hall. The chandeliers still glittered. But the air was different. On the staff bulletin board by the back door was a fresh QR code. Anonymous reports. Below it, Peter's bold signature. Maya touched her apron pocket where the scholarship letter rested. She didn't need to pull it out tonight. Today, the process had spoken for her. At the window table, a young boy with his mother watched her. He whispered something, then ran over. You're the lady who said the poem, he said, eyes bright. I'm learning Mandarin. Will you listen to my pronunciation? Maya knelt to eye level. The boy tried. Stumbled. She corrected gently. Lower your tongue a little. The second try came clear. He grinned. Chandelier light sparked in his eyes like glass. His mother murmured, thank you. Maya nodded. Words belong to all of us. That night, as Maya walked the rows, smoothing tablecloth edges, she no longer needed the scholarship letter to breathe. The bridge was built. The process was running. Scholarships were open. Apologies had been spoken. If anyone asked her trade, she would answer. I serve water for glasses and words for the room. Then she would smile. Breathe. Hold. Breathe. And speak at the right time. At shift's end, Maya stood alone in the hall. Crystal reflected her face. Not brighter. Just clear enough. The crystal glass does not lower the one who holds it. It only reflects the dignity of the one who drinks from it. She lifted the pitcher, poured water into the glass of a new arrival. A stranger. Another story. Another bridge. And somewhere beyond the doors, the wind carried an old poem across the glass city. Steady. Sure. Enough. And that is Maya's story. How a young woman once scorned in a banquet hall became a symbol of dignity and the strength of words. But here's the thing. Maya didn't win because she was louder. She didn't win because she was angrier. She won because she knew when to breathe, when to hold, and when to speak. She won because she turned pain into process, hurt into policy, silence into scholarship. And maybe that's the lesson here. Words are power, but only when they become action. So let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated because of who you are? Where you come from? What you do? How did you respond? Maybe you stayed silent. Maybe you spoke up. Maybe you're still deciding. But remember Maya's story. Remember that dignity doesn't need permission. That truth doesn't need volume. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is breathe, hold, and speak at exactly the right time. If this story touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Like it. Subscribe for more stories that matter. Because every time we share a story like Maya's, we build another bridge. And the world needs more bridges. Thank you for listening.